Hey guys, tonight we slip into the shadows of ancient Persia, where dust swirls under a blood-red sunset and the air hums with the clink of polished armor. You're standing on a rocky outcrop, gazing at a vast army below. 10 Immortal warriors, their spears glinting like stars, moving as one. These are the Persian Immortals, the elite force that made empires tremble. One misstep in their world, and you probably won't survive this. Those spears aren't for show. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I'm curious where you're drifting off from tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're not just anywhere. You're in the heart of the Achaemenid Empire, around 550 BCE, when Persia's power was a fist tightening over the ancient world. The Immortals weren't born in a day. Their origins are tangled in ambition and necessity. King Cyrus the Great, the empire's founder, needed a force to match his vision of endless conquest. You can almost hear the royal scribes muttering as they record his orders. Create a unit so loyal, so fierce, that even the gods would blink. The Immortals were his answer, handpicked from Persia's noblest families and toughest tribes. Their name alone, Anushia, meaning companions, hints at their closeness to the king, like a blade never leaving its sheath. But here's the quirky bit. Some say their training began as kids, with games like Chase the Scorpion to build nerve. No joke. Imagine you're 6, dodging venomous stingers in the desert for fun. Historians still argue whether this was real or just Greek gossip, since most of what we know comes from Herodotus, who loved a good tall tale. He's our main source, claiming the Immortals were more than men, almost mythical, their numbers never dipping below 10,000. If one fell, another stepped in, like water refilling a cup. You're picturing it now, an endless stream of warriors, their loyalty forged in fire. You wander through Susa, the empire's glittering capital, where the Immortals' legend was born. The streets buzz with traders, but all eyes turn when these warriors march past, their cloaks billowing like storm clouds. They weren't just soldiers, they were a message, Persia's might, wrapped in human form. You notice their silence, a discipline that chills you more than any war cry. Their creation wasn't just about muscle, it was strategy. Cyrus knew fear was a weapon, and the Immortals were its sharpest edge. You smirk, thinking of modern special forces, SEALs or SAS, fancy gear, same old game. Back then, though, no drones, just grit. As you linger, You catch whispers of their first missions, crushing rebellions in far-off lands, their banners a death knell to foes. The empire was vast, from Egypt to India, and the Immortals were its spine. You feel the weight of their purpose, not just to fight, but to be Persia's unyielding heart. One soldier glances your way, his eyes like polished obsidian. You're not sure if he's sizing you up or just bored. Either way, you're glad you're not his enemy. Tonight, you're safe, tucked under your blanket. But out there, the Immortals are just beginning to carve their name into history's bones. You're sweating now, standing in a sun-scorched valley where the air tastes of dust and resolve. This is where the Persian Immortals are forged, their training grounds a crucible of pain and precision. Remember those noble families from Susa? Their sons are here, stripped of privilege, running barefoot across jagged rocks. You wince as one stumbles, but he's up in a heartbeat. Weakness isn't an option. The Immortals' regimen is brutal, designed to craft men who laugh at fear. You're watching a process that turns boys into myths, and it's not pretty. Dawn breaks, and you see them rise from reed mats. No plush beds here. Their day starts with a 5-mile run, weighed down by leather packs stuffed with stones. You try to keep up, but your lungs are screaming. Good luck, they're not slowing down. Next comes sparring, wooden spears clashing until someone bleeds. The trainers, grizzled veterans, bark orders in Old Persian, their voices like gravel. You catch one rule: never drop your weapon. One kid does, and he's sent to haul water buckets till sunset. Harsh? Sure, but you're starting to get it. These guys are built to outlast empires. Here's a mainstream fact. The Immortals were trained in multiple weapons: spear, short sword, and bow, making them versatile killers. You see them now, firing arrows at straw targets, each shot a bullseye. But the quirky tidbit? They also learn to swim in full armor. Picture yourself flailing in a muddy river, a 20-pound breastplate dragging you down. Sounds like a prank, but it saved lives in campaigns across rivers like the Tigris. Historians still argue whether this was standard or just for elite squads. Some say it's exaggerated. Others swear it's why they crushed coastal foes. You shift to the evening, where the real magic happens. Around flickering campfires, they're taught loyalty, not just to the king, but to each other. You hear stories of past victories, the kind that make your spine tingle. One trainer boasts of an immortal who fought on with an arrow through his shoulder. You're skeptical, but the trainees hang on every word, their eyes gleaming. This isn't just physical, it's mental. They're molded to see death as a footnote, not a finale. You chuckle, thinking of your gym's "no pain, no gain" poster. These guys would eat that for breakfast. By night, they practice stealth, creeping through thorn bushes to ambush mock enemies. You're hiding with one, his breath steady as a metronome. He's 16, but his focus is ancient. The goal? Move unseen, strike unheard. You're impressed, but also glad you're not the target. Their diet's no joke either. Flatbread, dates, and goat meat, no frills. One soldier offers you a sip of sour wine. You pass politely. Modern fitness buffs would call this functional training, but you're pretty sure CrossFit doesn't include dodging real arrows. As the stars wheel overhead, you realize this isn't just about muscle. It's about endurance, spirit, and a touch of madness. The Immortals are sculpted to be unbreakable. They're training a secret recipe Persia guards like gold. You're exhausted just watching, but they're still going, shadows moving in the moonlight. You pull your blanket tighter, grateful your bed's softer than their rocky ground, and wonder how anyone could face these men and not run screaming. You're crouched behind a boulder, heart pounding, as the ground trembles under the march of the Persian Immortals. Their reputation precedes them like a storm cloud, and you're about to feel why enemies quake at their name. Across the valley, a rival army, Medes, Greeks, whoever's foolish enough, grips their weapons, eyes wide with dread. You're not fighting, but the fear's contagious, seeping into your bones like damp cold. The Immortals don't just win battles, they haunt dreams. Their presence is a weapon. You see it in the enemy's faltering steps, the whispered prayers rippling through their ranks. The Immortals move in perfect sync, 10,000 strong, their armor catching the sun like a mirror of doom. It's not just their numbers, though that's a mainstream fact, recorded by Herodotus, who swore their force never dwindled. If one fell, another rose, keeping the count eternal. You're starting to believe it, watching their lines hold firm. No gaps, no hesitation. It's unnatural, like they're carved from the same stone. But here's the quirky bit. Some Greek poets claim the Immortals wore masks to hide their faces, making them seem inhuman. You squint, trying to spot one, but their faces are bare, expressions blank as slate. Still, the idea lingers. Imagine facing a faceless army, not knowing if they're men or specters. Historians still argue whether this was propaganda or truth. No Persian art shows masks, but fear twists stories like reeds. You smirk, thinking of modern horror flicks. Same trick, older playbook. You shift closer, dust coating your throat. The enemy's commander shouts orders, but his voice cracks. The Immortals don't shout back. Their silence is worse, a void that swallows courage. You notice their banners, golden lions snarling on crimson cloth, flapping in the wind. To their foes, it's a death sentence. You're reminded of that kid in training, the one who never flinched. Multiply that by 10,000, and you get this: an army that doesn't break, doesn't blink. You're half tempted to wave a white flag yourself, just to be safe. The air thickens as the immortals halt, spears leveled. You're close enough to see their eyes, calm, almost bored, like they've seen this all before. The enemy's front line staggers. Some drop their shields. You can't blame them. The Immortals' legend is built on moments like this, when hope dies before the first arrow flies. You recall those campfire stories from the training grounds, tales of foes surrendering at the mere sight of them. One soldier nearby mutters about a battle where the enemy burned their own camp to flee faster. You chuckle, overkill, but relatable. Their reputation isn't just fear, it's calculation. The Persians knew psychology before it had a name. By making the Immortals a symbol, they won half the war before drawing a blade. You're impressed, but also uneasy. Modern armies use drones and PR campaigns. Back then, it was this: a living myth, marching in lockstep. As the Immortals advance, you pull back, your blanket a flimsy shield against their aura. You're safe, but out there, across that valley, someone's about to learn what dread really means. You're trudging across a dusty plain, the Immortals' boots pounding a rhythm that shakes your ribs. Battle looms, and you're in the thick of their formations, watching their tactics unfold like a deadly dance. These aren't just warriors, they're a machine, each move calculated to break enemies before swords even clash. You're surrounded by their ranks, spears bristling like a porcupine's quills, and you're wondering how anyone stands against this. Their strategy hinges on discipline. You see it in their sparabara, the front line, shields locked into a wall, spears jutting forward. Behind, archers' loose volleys in perfect sync, arrows arcing like black rain. A mainstream fact: this combined arms approach, blending infantry and ranged attacks, was Persia's trump card, overwhelming foes like the Greeks at Thermopylae. You're caught in the rhythm, shields clanging, feet stomping, as they advance without a single gap. It's hypnotic, but you wouldn't want to be on the receiving end. Here's the quirky tidbit. They used war drums to time their steps, each beat a signal to shift formation. You hear it now, a low thrum like a giant's heartbeat, keeping thousands in lockstep. Imagine trying to sleep through that camped nearby. Good luck. Historians still argue whether the drums were purely practical or meant to terrify. Some say enemies fled just hearing the sound. You're leaning toward both, feeling your pulse match the beat. You shift to their flanking maneuver. Cavalry sweeps wide, hoofs churning dust. while the Immortals pivot to trap the enemy. You're dodging horses, barely keeping up as they execute a pincer move with eerie precision. It's like watching chess, except the pawns are men and the board is blood-soaked. You recall their training, those endless runs, the stealth drills. This is why, to move as one, no matter the chaos. You smirk, thinking of modern armies practicing battle drills. Same idea, less shiny helmets. The enemy, some poor Babylonian rebels, crumbles. You see their lines waver as the Immortals press forward, shields absorbing arrows like a sponge. A rebel swings a mace, but an Immortal parries, spear flashing. It's over in seconds. You're impressed, but also glad you're just a ghost here, not picking a side. Their tactics aren't flashy, they're relentless. Numbers don't matter when you're this organized. One soldier winks at you, or maybe it's dust in his eye. Either way, you're staying out of spear range. As the battle winds down, you notice their adaptability. When the enemy retreats, the Immortals don't chase blindly. They reform, ready for traps. You're reminded of that river swimming drill. Crazy, but it taught them to expect anything. You chuckle, imagining a general today ordering troops to wade through a swamp for character. The Immortals would have done it without blinking. As dust settles, you pull your blanket closer, safe from the clash of bronze, but awed by the machine you just witnessed. You're standing in a Persian armory, the air heavy with the scent of oiled leather and polished bronze. The Immortals' gear surrounds you. Spears, shields, and armor that gleam like liquid fire. You're close enough to touch, running your fingers over a breastplate etched with lions. This isn't just equipment. It's the skin of a legend, crafted to spark terror before a blow is struck. You're about to see why their enemies whispered of invincible gods. Each Immortal carries a sagaris, a short, wicked axe that can split shields or skulls. You heft one, surprised by its balance, perfect for close quarters chaos. Their spears, 6 feet of ash and iron, are stacked like reeds, tips sharp enough to pierce your courage. A mainstream fact, their wicker shields, light but tough, were layered with hide, stopping arrows better than you'd expect. You tap one, half expecting it to crumble, but it's solid as stone. No wonder they held lines against heavier foes. Here's the quirky bit. Their cloaks' vibrant reds and purples weren't just for show. Some say they were woven with gold thread, dazzling enemies in sunlight like a mirage of wealth. You picture it, a shimmering wave advancing. And yeah, you'd hesitate too. Historians still argue whether this was practical or pure flex. Gold's heavy, but so is Persia's ego. You're betting on both, smirking at the thought of warriors strutting like ancient rock stars. You slip on a helmet, conical and bronze, feeling its weight press your brow. It's not comfy, but the cheek guards frame your face like a predator's jaw. The Immortal's armor, scale mail over leather, clinks softly as you move. You're no warrior, but in this, you feel untouchable. Their bows, compact and recurved, hang nearby, each paired with a quiver of reed arrows. You try drawing one, and your arm screams. Those training runs make sense now. The armory buzzes with soldiers prepping for war. One polishes his dagger, its hilt carved with a griffin. You notice their boots, sturdy yet flexible, built for marches across deserts or mountains. Everything's practical, but screams status. You recall those Greek tales of faceless masks. None here, but the gear's enough to haunt dreams. You chuckle, thinking of modern tacti-cool vests. These guys were the original gearheads, just with better style. As you step back, you see the bigger picture. This gear wasn't just for fighting, it was psychological. The shine, the weight, the colors, they're a message. You're already outclassed. You're glad you're not facing them, safe under your blanket, instead of staring down that golden glare. The armory's glow fades as you blink, but the Immortal's aura lingers, their gear a silent promise of ruin. You're perched on a hill, overlooking a sprawling Persian camp, the Immortal's banners snapping in the wind, their numbers, always 10,000, never less, feel like a riddle wrapped in a myth. You're here to unravel the secret behind this eternal count, a legend that made enemies believe they faced an unbreakable tide. The camp hums with purpose, but you're starting to wonder, is this precision real or a clever trick? Herodotus, our chatty Greek source, swore the Immortals' ranks never dipped. A mainstream fact: when a warrior died, fell ill, or retired, another stepped in instantly, keeping the 10,000 exact. You watch a young recruit, barely bearded, take the place of a limping veteran. The switch is seamless, like swapping a gear in a machine. No ceremony, just efficiency. You're impressed, but it's eerie. How do they keep this up across wars and years? Here's the quirky tidbit. Some whispered the replacements were chosen by lottery. Names drawn from clay jars in Susa's palace. You picture it, nobles sweating as their sons' fates hang on a shard. It's probably nonsense. Logistics like that scream bureaucracy, not divine order. Historians still argue whether the number was literal or symbolic. 10,000 sounds neat, but armies don't work like math problems. You're skeptical, raising an eyebrow at the thought of ancient HR spreadsheets. You wander through the camp, dodging mules laden with grain. The Immortals' support system is a beast. Cooks, smiths, and scouts keep this machine oiled. You spot a clerk scratching tallies on a clay tablet, maybe tracking recruits. It hits you. This isn't just about warriors. It's about infrastructure. Persia's empire was vast, and replacements came from every corner. Medes, Elamites, even distant Bactrians. You recall their training, those grueling runs. Only the best made the cut, ensuring the 10,000 weren't just a number, but a promise of quality. Still, doubts nag. Battles aren't tidy. You imagine chaos, arrows flying, men falling, yet the count holds. You smirk, thinking of modern military roll calls, all clipboards and chaos. Maybe the Persians fudged it, parading reserves to spook foes. One soldier catches you staring, his spear glinting. You nod awkwardly, hoping he doesn't think you're counting heads. The myth's power lies in belief. Enemies bought it, and that's half the battle. As night falls, you're left with questions. Was it logistics or propaganda? The Immortals' eternal 10,000 feels like both. A truth stretched into legend. You pull your blanket tighter, safe from their unyielding math, but haunted by the idea of a force that never shrinks, never falters. You're strolling through Persepolis, Persia's dazzling capital, where marble pillars gleam under a starlit sky. The Immortals' legend isn't just steel and blood. It's woven into the empire's soul, shaping how Persians see themselves. You're here to feel their cultural impact, how these warriors became more than soldiers. They're the heartbeat of a nation's pride. The city pulses with their presence, even when they're miles away. Walk past the royal palace, and you see their image carved in stone, tall, spears upright, cloaks rippling. These reliefs aren't just art, they're propaganda, shouting Persia's might to every visitor. A mainstream fact: the Immortals were celebrated in festivals, their victories retold in epic poems that made kids dream of joining their ranks. You hear a bard chanting now, his voice weaving tales of their stand against Lydian rebels. The crowd cheers, and you get it. These guys are rock stars, minus the guitars. Here's the quirky bit. Some nobles name their sons after famous immortals, hoping for a slice of their glory. You spot a kid running by, called Artabazus, after a legendary captain. Cute, but imagine the pressure. Talk about big boots to fill. Historians still argue whether this hero worship strengthened unity or bred arrogance. Did it make Persia bold or blind? You're leaning toward both, smirking at the thought of ancient fanboys. You slip into a marketplace where merchants hawk amulets shaped like the Immortals' lion banners. These trinkets promise protection, and they're selling fast. The Immortals' myth fuels faith. Soldiers wear them. Mothers clutch them. You recall their gear, those golden cloaks dazzling enemies. That splendor wasn't just for battle. It was a brand, burned into Persia's identity. You chuckle, thinking of modern sports logos plastered on jerseys. Same game, older stakes. Their influence runs deeper. You overhear priests blessing a temple, invoking the Immortals' discipline as a model for devotion. Even farmers, toiling far from war, tell stories of their endurance to inspire harvests. The Immortals are Persia's mirror, loyal, unyielding, elite. You wander to a tavern where a drunk boasts his cousins an immortal. Doubtful, but you nod politely. The pride's real, even if the story's shaky. As you leave the city, you feel their shadow linger. They're not just fighters, they're a symbol, binding an empire from Egypt to India. You pull your blanket close, safe from Persepolis' grandeur, but awed by how a few thousand men became the soul of a civilization. You're standing on a blood-soaked ridge, the air thick with dust and the clash of bronze. The Immortals are in their element, locked in their fiercest battles, defying odds that would break lesser men. You're not fighting, but the chaos pulls you in. Spears flash, shields splinter, and their golden lion banners snap defiantly. You're here to witness the clashes that carved their name into eternity, where their legend was forged in fire. One battle looms large. Thermopylae, 480 BCE. A mainstream fact. The Immortals faced 300 Spartans and their allies in a narrow pass, a meat grinder where their numbers couldn't overwhelm. You see them now, Sparabara, shields locked, arrows darkening the sky. They don't break the Greeks head on, but their discipline holds. After days, they outflank via a traitor's path, sealing the Spartans' fate. You wince as the last Greek falls, but the Immortals' calm precision chills you more. They're not showy, just relentless. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some say they fought under a lunar eclipse, spooking both sides into thinking the gods were watching. You glance up, half expecting the moon to dim, but it's clear. Historians still argue whether this celestial drama was real or Greek embellishment. Eclipses were omens, and stories grow in retelling. You smirk, imagining a soldier muttering, "Great, now the sky's against us." You shift to another clash. Plataea, a year later. The Immortals anchor Persia's center against a Greek coalition. You're dodging stray arrows, heart racing, as their formation bends but doesn't break. Their war drums, those thumping signals from training, keep them steady. They lose, but retreat in order, no rout. You recall their gear, those light shields soaking up blows. It's not enough this time, but their grit is unreal. You're half tempted to cheer, then remember you're neutral. A lesser-known fight flickers in memory, the crushing of the Ionian Revolt. You're on a rocky coast, watching the Immortals storm rebel cities. Their spears gleam as they move house to house. No mercy, but no cruelty, just purpose. You chuckle, thinking of modern SWAT teams, all tactics and no chatter. One soldier wipes sweat from his brow, his cigaris, axe, bloodied. He nods at you, or maybe the dust's in his eyes. Either way, you're staying clear. These battles aren't just wins or losses. They're proof of the Immortal's core. Adaptable, unshakable, a machine that grinds on. You pull your blanket tighter, safe from the screams and steel, but haunted by their ability to stare down impossible odds and march anyway. You're wandering a quiet desert, the wind carrying whispers of a fading empire. The Immortals, once Persia's unbreakable spine, are slipping into shadow, their decline a puzzle you're piecing together. The air feels heavy, as if history itself is mourning. You're here to probe why these invincible warriors, who struck fear from Greece to India, eventually vanished, their spears no longer glinting under the sun. The Achaemenid Empire, their home, began to crack, a mainstream fact after Xerxes I's reign, around 465 BCE. Internal strife, rebellions, court plots, and weak kings sapped Persia's strength. You picture the Immortals, loyal to a throne that's now a game of knives. They're still elite, but their missions shift from conquest to quashing uprisings, like firefighters battling a blaze that's already spread. You see them in Susa, faces grim, guarding a paranoid king instead of charging foes. It's not what they trained for. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some tales claim their numbers dwindled because nobles stopped sending sons, fearing political purges. You imagine a father hiding his boy, whispering, "No immortals for you, too risky." It's a stretch, but plausible. Court intrigue was a meat grinder. Historians still argue whether their decline was logistical or cultural. Did the empire's rot weaken them, or did their myth outgrow their reality? You're betting on both, smirking at the irony of an eternal force undone by politics. You drift to a battlefield, maybe Gaugamela, 331 BCE, where Alexander's Macedonians shatter Persia's army. The Immortals fight fiercely, their Sparabara holding until overwhelmed. You recall Thermopylae's discipline, but here it's not enough. Alexander's phalanxes are a buzzsaw. They don't break. They're just outmaneuvered, their war drums drowned by Greek war cries. You wince, feeling their pride sting. One soldier, bloodied, grips his sagaris like it's his soul. You want to tell him it's over, but you're just a ghost. Their role shrinks as Persia fractures. You see them as royal guards, not shock troops, their golden cloaks gathering dust. The empire's vastness, once their strength, becomes a burden. Too many fronts, too few loyal hands. You recall their 10,000, that perfect count. Now, it's a memory, not a fact. You chuckle, thinking of modern armies downsizing. Same story, less bronze. The immortal secret wasn't immortality. It was dependence on an empire that couldn't last. As you turn away, the desert feels emptier. Their decline wasn't one moment, but a slow bleed. Ambition, betrayal, and time did what no enemy could. You pull your blanket close, safe from history's weight, but wondering how something so mighty could fade so quietly. You're sitting by a dying fire, the embers glowing like the last echoes of the Persian Immortals legend. Their story, born in dust, forged in battle, faded by time, still lingers, whispering through history's cracks. You're here to trace their lasting legacy, how these warriors, long gone, still shape our dreams of valor and might. The night is soft, and their myth feels close, like a shadow you can almost touch. Their influence endures in stories. A mainstream fact, the Immortals inspired later elite units, from Alexander's companions to Rome's praetorians. You imagine a Roman centurion hearing tales of their 10,000, thinking, we need that. Their model, loyalty, discipline, fearlessness became a blueprint for armies across centuries. You see their echo in modern special forces, all grit and precision, minus the golden cloaks. Their legend lives, even if their names are dust. Here's the quirky bit. Their name, Immortals, pops up in pop culture, from comic books to movies like 300. You chuckle, picturing their bronze helmets on a Hollywood poster. Over the top, but not wrong. They're the ultimate underdog killers, a vibe that still sells. Historians still argue whether their myth overshadows their reality. Did their fame inflate their deeds, or were they truly unmatched? You're leaning toward both, smirking at how a 2,500-year-old hype train keeps rolling. You wander through a museum in your mind, where their lion banners hang, faded but fierce. Scholars study their battles, Thermopylae, Plataea, debating tactics, while kids play games inspired by their clashes. You recall their gear, those sagaris, axes, gleaming in the armory. That image of elite warriors, shimmering and unstoppable, fuels everything from novels to video games. You're half tempted to boot up a strategy game yourself, but your blanket's too cozy. Their legacy isn't just martial, it's human. They showed what unity and will could do, binding an empire's pride. You think of Persepolis, its carvings still standing, whispering of their glory. They're gone, but they taught us that legends don't die. They evolve. You yawn, feeling the fire's warmth fade, and wonder if their spirits march somewhere, spears high under a desert moon. The night grows quieter now, the stars above you, soft and distant, like the Immortals' fading footsteps. You're safe, wrapped in warmth, far from the clash of spears or the weight of empires. Their story, all fire and fury, settles into a gentle hum, a tale that carried you through time. Let the dust of Persia drift away. Let the banners fall still. Your eyelids are heavy, the world slowing, and the last embers wink out. Sleep calls, gentle as a whisper, pulling you under like a calm tide. Rest now, dreaming of warriors who never truly fade, their legacy a lullaby for your soul.